thought I would talk about some leaks, which is typically not something that I do, but this seemed quite legitimate. So if you are familiar with a YouTube channel by the name of Chapter Master Valvrak, I believe is how you pronounce his name, you might have seen that he was covering this supposed book that was found that has the name Era of Ruin. And the book appears to be the final book within the Horus Heresy series. And it's kind of like a secret 65th novel that they're going to release. I always thought 64 books was quite a nice number. I always thought 63 books is what it should have been, because it was a 63rd expedition at the start of the Horus Heresy. So they should have just stuck 63rd books, but then the End of the Death became 3, and then, yeah, now they've got this one. Anyway, so it looks like they're going to release one final book for the Horus Heresy called Eras of Ruin, and there's actually a list of titles for the short stories within this anthology that have been released. And so we can see what the titles are here. We've got Angels of Another Age, Fulgurite, Fragments, Ex Libris, System Purge, After the Dawn, The Darkness, and Homebound, and then The Carrion Lord of the Imperium. And here's the thing, as someone who's pretty familiar with all of those authors, I think I can put together a pretty, I'm hoping a relatively accurate list of who's going to be writing about what. So I thought it would be kind of a fun thing to do, to try and have a bit of a guess to see what it is exactly they're going to be, what it is exactly they're going to be writing about. But I'm also curious to see what you guys all think, of course. Hello, chat. Hope everyone's doing well. But yes, I will be donning the foil rack hat today. Please do check out his channel as well if you haven't, because he's also got a video covering this. And then I think the leaks were originally posted onto Reddit, and as I say, it's not normally something I talk about very often, but and when I first saw the leak, it was just like a book, but it looks quite legitimate. It's a proper like leather bound book. It's like the limited edition version, and it has like, it looks pretty good. I'm not, if it's fake, it's a very good fake. So I think this is legitimate, and I suspect Games Workshop will announce this book properly in the next couple of weeks, maybe just before Christmas, as like a Christmas thing. But yeah, again, these are the titles, and I thought it would be kind of a cool idea to kind of talk about, because, and one thing we've spoken about before, there are a bunch of storylines from the Horus Heresy that have not been finished up. And also, there are storylines that the authors have specifically said will be finished by the end of the Heresy, or at least be continued by the end of the Heresy, and they never did. So we can talk about that. So, the final book will be named The Birth of Cain. Well, that would be interesting. All right, so who are we going to start with? John French is on there twice. So let's start with John French. John French has written about, he writes about quite a few series. He's written the Ahriman series, which is very popular. Ahriman does play quite a big role in the End of the Death Volume 3, though I don't think he needs a lot more attention. The main character that John French has been writing about that I think he is probably going to pick up is Cypher. So John French wrote Cypher, Lord of the Fallen, and he also wrote the Luther novel, if I remember correctly. And I think there's a very good chance he continues the Cypher novel, because if you're not familiar, at the end of the Death Volume 3, Cypher suffers a grave wound that he might even have died. But I'll explain later, but he probably won't have done. But the last we see of Cypher in the Siege of Terra, the Cypher that is Zahariel, he suffers a wound across his chest by a Nurgle-infested scythe, because they really don't stand a chance against Typhus. And yeah, that's how his story ends. So he might have died, and that might be how his story ends, but I don't think that's what it is. And so I think most likely one of these stories is the continuation of the Cypher storyline after the Heresy. I think that the big storyline is going to be, of course, the Cypher managing to heal himself, or the power of the Emperor healing Cypher. And then you're going to have this story around Cypher attempting to bring Causewayne to their side. When the Dark Angels arrive in the Siege of Terra, this is kind of introduced as a big storyline that the Fallen are going to try and bring Causewayne to their side. And if they can do that, then they believe that a lot of the other Dark Angels will join them, because, and quite frankly, everybody loves Causewayne. So they're going to try and do that, and it's going to be really interesting to see, because Corswain is, as I've said, kind of the best, goodest boy of the Dark Angels, but at the same time, Corswain might be quite disappointed that the Lion didn't make it to Terra, and he won't understand the reasoning behind the Lion not coming with Guilliman to Terra. So it will be interesting to see how that plays out, and maybe that is how the story goes. Maybe Corswain does doubt the Lion a bit, and that's why you have this kind of mixed personality of the Lion. So I guess of Cypher in 40k. Hello everybody, thank you so much for joining me. Ex Libris just means from books. Yeah, it could just do that. So that's, if I would guess, that one is about Ahriman, because Ahriman's storyline in the Siege of Terra is about he takes place in like this the Hall of Leng. The Hall of Leng is kind of like the personal library of the Emperor, and Ahriman kind of like runs ahead of all of the other Chaos Space Marines because he wants to kind of go through the Emperor's library to get as much knowledge as possible. Of course, he wants to understand more about the rubric. So this might be setting up something for the rubric. So yeah, I guess we'll see. But yeah, that's what I would guess is going to happen there. And then his other book is called Angels of Another Age. Angels of Another Age, the Dark Angels, could be something like that, right? So that would be my guess, is that for John French's books, we're going to get one on Ahriman, one on Cypher. That's probably what I would say. Going forward, Fulgurite is a really interesting name for a story. So if you're not familiar with the Fulgurite dagger is, the Fulgurite dagger is a very important plot device within the Horus Heresy. It is sought after by Erebus, it's sought after by the Cabal, and ultimately it's used by John Grammaticus to, well, I say ultimately, the main purpose of it, kind of in the story, is it's used by John Grammaticus to kind of, at least partway, heal Vulcan after Vulcan has been driven to madness since his capture by Conrad Kurz. However, the Fulgurite dagger, as far as we know, was lost. So it kind of stays in Vulcan, and in Old Earth, in that story, that's the dagger, it ends up, when he ends up kind of committing this journey through the webway to Terra, and he fights the greater demon, etc., etc. He ends up that bit of the Fulgurite ends up being destroyed. So I don't think it's necessarily going to be connected to that, but I do think there is a good chance we'll get another Fulgurite, because Fulgurite, if you're not familiar, is kind of like Fulgurite in reality. It's the name given to when lightning strikes sand, and Fulgurite in 40k. It referred in the Heresy, it was like a spear, and this spear was crafted from when the Emperor's lightning struck sand, and that Fulgurite contains like a tiny part of the Emperor's power. It would make sense to me that a tiny fraction of some of the Emperor's lightning during his battle against Horus maybe struck some ground somewhere, because remember, they fought across time and space, so maybe someone across time and space. It might even not be set in the Heresy timeline. It might be set in 40k, and there might be something really crazy like that, where like someone in 40k will find a Fulgurite spear that was left over from the Emperor's fight on battle against Horus. So they, for example, they have a battle on Istvan 3, so maybe, or Istvan 5, one of the two. So someone on Istvan 5 might all of a sudden find this Fulgurite spear that has some of the power of the Emperor in it, and then we'll get a huge new plot line in 40k around that. But that one's obviously quite obvious, which would be interesting. We need an Ahriman versus Mephiston novel, and then that's it about those two characters. That would be cool. I think that we had Magnus versus Mephiston in Throne of City of Light, so I don't think we'll get that anytime soon. But I do think we'll see more in the most recent book. We see some. Ahriman, of course, is now very interested in the Inari, because the Inari have to express the ability to basically heal the rubric as Ahriman would like. So I think that's most likely. Right, where else we got? Fragments, All We Have Left by Dan Abnett. I mean, one would think that that's going to be the big one, because it's Dan Abnett. So I'm going to guess that is going to be the Constantine Valdor storyline. Well, Actually, will it be Constantine Valdor? All we have left, that might be something around Litu, to be fair. Because Litu, for example, has like nothing left in his world now. So Litu is never particularly aligned with the Imperium, as it were. He is loyal to his mother, and his mother is now dead. And so maybe like one of the things in the Saturnine novel, the word fragments is bringing me back to the story in Saturnine where John Grammaticus is kind of going through all these kind of like old deities that Erda has in her hut. And so perhaps there's something around that, like maybe he's going to go back to the place of his mother's birth, and he's going to like bury his mother. That's what I'm going to guess. Russell Land, thank you for the super chat, mate. As of now, which Primarch are you sure is going to be introduced next? Jagatai seems the obvious choice. Fulgrim or Lehman seems like a wild card. So, I mean, Fulgrim is definitely the next Primarch to come back. Sorry, Demon Fulgrim. I assume you're talking about like Loyalist Fulgrim. But yeah, Fulgrim is definitely the next Primarch of any kind to come back. He's going to be a Demon Primarch coming back like the end of this edition. So some point next year is pretty likely. But the next Loyalist, I do think Jagatai Khan. I did do a whole stream on that. So do check that out if you're interested. But yeah, I think Jagatai's got to be. And to be fair, Lehman Russ is a very solid guess because in terms of like models, of course, Games Workshop will make a lot of money by introducing a new leader for the Space Wolves, a new Space Wolf range. You know, this is just printing money. We're as close as you can get in the UK. So it's, incredibly profitable for them to do that. But in terms of the lore, there's so much more lore around Jagatai returning, in my opinion, than the rest of them. I just don't think, any comparison. Hello, Norway. How you doing, guys? Dawn. Would Dan write about Dawn? He could do. I mean, fragments could be taken many different ways. It could be something to do with his brain. Both Valdor and Dawn have suffered kind of catastrophic levels of turmoil throughout their venture onto the Vengeful Spirit. Of course, they knew it would be a trap, but it was a lot worse than they expected. Valdor, as I've said before, is like notably different after the Emperor. He sees the Emperor's body. And Rogue Dawn, of course, suffered for centuries in this desert. So he is in a bad way. And we do know that the Imperial Fists note how different Dawn is after the Heresy. So I think that there's a pretty good chance it's about one of those two. But I want to see more Litu, I'll be honest. My heart tells me more Litu. System Purge by Gav Thorpe. This was something that was really kind of missing in the final book, which was the Ultramarines cleaning up Terra. We didn't get a lot on that, really. So after the Emperor falls, I mean, to be honest, we don't really get a lot on the Emperor being put onto the Golden Throne at all. I can talk more about that in a sec. But like we get brief passages, and then there's a couple of paragraphs talking about the Ultramarines, of course, clearing up the system, purging wherever possible. But there's not a lot of it. Hang on, actually, let me just check. What's the author for? Interesting. Okay. Yeah, that'll probably be System Purge. So I'm going to guess Homebound by Chris Ray. This one's a bit more interesting. The most likely answer, I'll be honest with you, is Jagatai Khan, right? It's about the White Scars. We do know that the White Scars will head home, and of course Jagatai Khan will spend, I think it's 60, 70, 80 years, something like that, many decades, cleaning out Chiguris, because Chiguris has been preyed upon massively by Drukhari and other Xenos who have kind of sprung up in the wake of mankind being in this weak position, and they have tried to take advantage of the fact that, the White Scars are looking weak to basically take as many slaves as possible from Chiguris. So that's what I think the most likely answer is. But in terms of stories that we know are going to continue, Aric Tyrannus still is yet to come up in the Siege of Terra. And Graham McNeil did say that Aric Tyrannus will be coming back. Graham McNeil wrote Outcast Dead, which is the story where he appears. So I think that there's a good chance we will see him here. The reason I want to say Chris Raitt is because Chris Raitt wrote Valdor, Birth of the Imperium, which of course features heavily the Thunder Warriors. So I think that's got a good chance. It could be this other story, After the Dawn of Darkness. I think maybe there'll be something around that. But I really think one of these stories has to be about Aric Tyrannus. Because, you know, they just said he was coming back. And quite frankly, I take their word on that, which I think is interesting. There we go. Renex, thank you so much for supporting the channel, man. You legend. The Carrion Lord of the Imperium by Aaron Dembski Bowden. So it's either going to be Abaddon, right? Which it might be, because Aaron Dembski Bowden writes the Night Lord series, and also, quite frankly, it's just really nice to see Aaron Dembski Bowden is still writing for them, because I know he's had like a bunch of personal stuff, and like everyone, I'm kind of deeply hoping that we get the final Black Legion book soon. So yeah, fingers crossed we get that anytime soon. So that's just really nice to see. But yeah, the Carrion Lord of the Imperium. Aaron Dembski Bowden, of course, also wrote Master of Mankind. So I guess the most likely answer is that this is the story that gives us a bit more background on what the Emperor kind of does as he's being put onto the Golden Throne. Does he send out any psychic messages to anybody? Is he able to relay some information to Rogel Dawn? Is he able to give some advice to Constantine Valdor? Because of course we know Valdor's going to go on this big journey. So yeah, that's going to be like really wild. Maybe it will be based around like the Mechanicus and them trying to kind of like reforge, update the works around the Golden Throne, because it sort of has to be changed a bit because it's going to serve a different purpose now. So I think there's a good chance. So all right, looking at all those again. So Angels of Another Age, Dark Angels, Fulbright, obvious. Someone getting the Fulbright Spear. Maybe Erebus, actually. Maybe like Erebus getting a Fulbright Spear. Fragments, Leto Valdor Dawn, Ex Libris, Ahriman, System Purge, Ultramarines, After the Dawn, The Darkness. Let's go Aric Tyrannus. And then Homebound, White Scars, Carrion Lord of the Imperium, The Master of Mankind. And the note is the fact that Carrion Lord of the Imperium is last. That's probably where you put the story of the Emperor. One final story on the Master of Mankind. Some sort of something around his interment, which would just be really really massive. So I think each of these stories I will be probably poring over greatly once they come out, as you would expect. I've no doubt if you watch this channel. ADB also wrote First Heretic. I don't think you'd see anything on. I don't think Carrion Lord of the Imperium would be a reference to Lorgar. Obviously, Argol Tal is dead. I don't think it'd be a reference to Erebus. So, yeah, I think it's most likely going to be the Emperor. And he did write Master of Mankind, which is, to this day, kind of the premier tome on the character of the Emperor. There's, even though he appears in lots of novels, of course. Which one will have Omegon? I don't necessarily think we'll get an Omegon story. I think that the Omegon versus Guilliman story will be an entire novel in and of itself. So I think that you'll have to wait a little bit for that. But I do think it'll come. I don't think that'll be too far away. I think that. I think that you might get Ingo Peck in one of these. Fragments, All We Have Left by Dan Abnett. It's most likely going to be a Dan Abnett storyline. Fragments, in brackets, All We Have Left. In fact, let me search. Let me pull up the old Kindle. Let me search in The End of the Death, see if All We Have Left has a match. Because that would help us out a bit. Here we go. Okay. It says one match. I do not think it will be long now, not long at all. We can go together. I have nothing left to fight for, and you shouldn't go alone. Oh, that's Abaddon. Interesting. Oh no, that's Logan, sorry. Maybe. Could be something around maybe the creation of Samus or something weird like that, but I don't think that's necessary at this point in the heresy. I think in terms of like stories that are needed, right? Obviously we need Eric, Barthus and Nandrek, I guess would be another one. That would be Nick Kime. Nick, to be fair, okay, that's maybe Barthus and Nandrek in Fulbright. Maybe he gets the Fulbright spear. That would work. There we go. It's all coming together. So, yeah, maybe that. It might be Dan Abnett. Because, yeah, I don't know. We know the Emperor will return or be reborn in some sense. But will it happen after all the Loyalist Primarchs come back? Or is it a lot sooner? Thanks for the super chat, Russell. We don't know. I mean, at the moment, it's looking pretty soon. So from the Dawn of Fire series, it's looking like it's going to come pretty soon. They've been ramping up the references massively, and I don't think it would hurt the setting as much as you think. I can understand totally why you'd say that, because it's like, well, if they introduce the Emperor as a character, kind of, he's superlative over the Primarchs. So do you really need to bring the Primarchs back or something at that point, or will they lose weight? But the truth is, the Star Child will be different. It will probably have some limitation on it, making it less powerful than the Emperor was when he walked as a man. That will be my guess. So I think that you will see the Star Child kind of in the stories in the background and stuff. But it's, yeah, I mean, in the same way that Faith plays a big role in the galaxy today, I don't think it will play a bigger role in the galaxy than Faith necessarily. I'm sure the Star Child will turn up and turn the tide of a battle single-handedly from time and again. There we go. Is there any chance Fragments could be about Sanguinius? That's a great question. Could be. Could be something like that. Could be the fragmented souls of Sanguinius. The other option I think would be interesting as a story, because we've spoken about Erda before, is that Erda dies quite quickly after her introduction. She's in Saturnine. She's not in Mortis. She dies in Warhawk. So I think I would like to see more on her, and I always thought like an obvious answer would be something like Sanguinius meets Erda before he goes back to the Eternity Gate. So maybe you do something like that, where we see a conversation that Sanguinius had with Erda. That doesn't really change the setting, because at that point you've got the fact that Sanguinius dies, so he takes that knowledge to his grave, which would make a lot of sense, I think. And then, of course, Erda dies later on. So, yeah, maybe something like that. And then Fragments again could be a reference to kind of I'm thinking like Fragments of Gods and etc. because all we have left of religion, etc. after the Emperor's Imperial Truth. I don't know. It's a bit more tenuous. But yeah, Fragments, all we have left in terms of Sanguinius' soul. That also works, of course, because, as I said in the Litu video, there's this wording around Sanguinius' soul kind of being obliterated, being shattered. David, thank you for joining the channel. Please check out the Discord as well, members Discord, and check out extra content for members as well. Are you caught up in the Dawn of Fire series? I am. I've read the Dawn of Fire series in its entirety. I wouldn't necessarily recommend everyone read it in its entirety, but I'm glad I read it because it provides a lot of context. It's covering a lot of the key stuff in the setting, but some of the books are kind of random, or they kind of like have a loose tie-in at the end to the overarching storyline. But yeah, if you've read it, Ash, let me know what your thoughts are. I'm curious. Read my first 40k book, Hell's Reach, great choice. And while it started out slow and interesting, I'm glad I stuck with it because the book was great. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty old Black Templar's book, really. But yeah, very famous speech, of course, by the chaplain. What's his name? Oh, that's I'm mind blank now. Chaplain. The Black Templar chaplain. What's his name? Oh, complete mind blank. So this is the problem with live streaming. Grimaldus, there we go. Yeah, but there we go. That's the problem with live streaming. If I forget, I forget. There's nothing I can do. Ingopek would be cool. Ingopek would be great. I'd love to see Ingopek come back. I don't know. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, just a story of him being like found by the Adeptus Custodes, maybe found by Constantine Valdor, because I assume they work together in the Heresy, or maybe maybe a story of him having been captured by the Adeptus Custodes. He's in the Dark Cells Dark Cells of Terra, and then Constantine Valdor comes to meet him at the end of the book, and then fade to black. And then that's how it ends. All of them feature Omegon. You just don't know he's there. Yes, could well be. Thinking Dawn cut off his own fist, which represents his oaths to the Emperor, and now gives himself to chaos. Oh, I mean, that would be a rogue choice. I'll tell you what, to keep us on our toes. Did that. Adam, thank you for Super Chat, mate. Thank you. Hello, Mexico. Hey, I'm actually going to Mexico on my honeymoon next year. So, yeah. I was going to say let me know if there's some good spots, but I forget other countries aren't as small as the UK, and Mexico's just a big place. Dawn of Fire series was my first Warhammer books, and I don't know, they tie together in the end. Well, they kind of tie together I'm kind of concerned, and I'm kind of concerned that this final Silent King book isn't going to really tie to the rest of them. I hope it does. It'll be really interesting. There are some big questions left at the end of Hand of Abaddon. But, yes, I mean, the fact that it's about the Silent King is... Obviously, it makes a lot of sense in like the 40k narrative, because the Pariah Nexus is such a big thing, and we found out in the Pariah Nexus campaign that Guilliman is just he's potentially going into that fray, which we now have to be confirmed. But it was kind of random in that there's no setup for this in the rest of the series. There's probably a reference from like Messinius about how Ultramarines are being pulled away to go and fight in Pariah Nexus. That probably rings a bell, but that's all I can really think of. There's no real setup for like a big battle versus the Necrons, and you're gonna bring back in Khul and Guilliman and the Silent King and perhaps even Imatech, and you've got all these massive 40k characters in the setting, and I just feel like they're gonna overshadow all these characters they've been building up over multiple books, which I'm a bit sad about, really, because I was kind of really excited to see more on Yang and Kesh. Like, they were really cool. And I quite like Arios, actually. I thought Arios was a great character by the end of it. He has a very badass line when he kills the Butcher King. He says to the god, your gods can't hear you or something, which I thought was cool. Dude, Guilliman cannot square up to the Silent King. Ain't no way in hell. Yeah, I don't know, man. It's... We just don't have enough on the Silent King. I totally understand your reasoning. The Silent King should be, reasonably an Emperor level character, because he is a premier character of the setting. And he's from the mythology of Warhammer 40k. He's a absolute legend. But is he a good fighter, I guess, is the only thing. And perhaps they need to specify some limitations on the Necrons, like maybe the things haven't fully awakened, etc. And of course, this is the thing about Primarchs, right? Is that you can't. I mean, obviously Guilliman has died, so it's kind of a bad example. But like, if the Silent King kills Guilliman, that's it. But if Guilliman kills the Silent King, it's absolutely fine, because at the end of the book, you just have the Silent King be reformed on a tomb world somewhere, because you'd have to destroy every single tomb world of the Zarek dynasty in order to get Zarek. So it just doesn't work. The Silent King is the premier general in the universe, not just a beat stick like Rabute and the Lion. True, but I guess, I don't know if you read the Pariah Nexus campaign, but in that it's kind of like, and this is probably what they'll do, is it's just because he doesn't consider humanity a particularly great threat, he kind of ignores the Mechanicus for a long time. And it's not until they start using these kind of horrific weapons that Belisarius Cawl has created, has authorized, that he's like, okay, I'm going to kill you now. But yeah, presumably, I mean, by all rights, I get where you're coming from. This should be a relatively quick fight. The Necrons, this is the problem of the Necrons, isn't it? Renex, he died twice. Oh, that's true, I guess. Yeah, that's true. Maybe I should do a video one day on the multiple deaths of Rabute. I'm on Mortis right now, and it's a bit of a drag for me. Too much Grammaticus. Yes, it's quite along the what's it called? it's not called heaven, but it's called like, yeah, like the perfect garden place. Yeah, it's a bit of a long storyline, that, isn't it? For what it does, which is basically introduce Ol and the cow survivors back into the group. But you'll also get some cool characters at the end of it. But yeah, no, it's a bit sad. I mean, I will say best part of the book is kind of finding out more about the that's the last book with the Psi Titans in it, which is a bit of a shame. And I hope we see a Psi Titan in 40k, because they're just such a cool idea, aren't they? Are you concerned, thanks David, the Lion story has gone nowhere in the last year and a half? Almost seems like GW didn't really have a plan for him and just wanted the money. So I don't think it's that bad. I get where you're coming from. I do, man. And good to see your fellow Dark Angel fan. I don't think it's as bad as them just kind of like, introducing him as a cash grab, having no plan for him. I think that there are it's tough. I don't have to play defense for GW, but I do think, to be honest, I do think it is probably true that they have the Amazon TV show. They have certain things that were delayed. Of course, the entire Dark Angels range was delayed in its introduction. We've only had like half of the Dark Angels models. And so all of these things have probably meant like they've been pushing back books, they've been pushing back stories to wait until things can kind of catch up. So I think that all of those things kind of play a part. But am I disappointed? Yeah, I mean, I think so. To be fair, I guess, once we're past Silent King, the novel, the Prime Nexus story, that should basically catch us up to the front plotline of 40k. Still not entirely clear where Arcs of Omen comes, but that we should be basically caught up at that point. And so there we can have the Lion and Gilliman meet. And as I spoke about in a video recently, the Lion and Gilliman are both fighting the Tyranids now. So presumably there's a pretty easy way to bring them together, which is, yeah. Hey, you like killing these big bug things? They're pretty mad, right? Yeah, it's nuts. We haven't actually had a book on Gilliman fighting the Nids hand to hand, which I really want to see. I want to see him burn some Nids with the Emperor's Sword. But we did see the Lion mess up some Carnifexes, which was very satisfying. Too much John Grammaticus, he. Yeah, I mean he's a filler character for a lot of the heresies, the thing, isn't he? That's the problem. Is Mortis before or after Saturnine? It's the one after Saturnine, because Saturnine is great and Warhog is crazy good. Yeah, it's definitely. Yeah, I mean it's I mean it had to be done. It's kind of like Titan Death. It had to be done. But like it's not one of the books I think you're excited to read. You just kind of like, yeah, fair enough. We're gonna have to talk about Titans. Isn't the Lion story meant to be more down to earth, like a questing knight instead of being a mass scale executioner? It depends on what you mean by down to earth, I guess, because he's still kind of traveling across the galaxy. You're probably right. Really, none of the lore has moved forward, I guess. I mean, nothing happened with the Tyranids either. Yeah, I mean, the Tyranids, they're probably going to deliberately slow down because of the fact that Space Marine 2 is set in that story. So they want that story to go on for as long as possible, I guess. But yeah, I guess we'll see. It depends what they do for the 10th edition, and when 10th edition comes. When did it say Robbie was fighting the Tyranids? He hasn't fought them hand to hand, but we do know he's kind of like commanding them in the book, commanding the Ultramarines generally from like the 10th edition lore, and then in the book Leviathan. Yeah, he does come up there. I hope the final Heresy books catch up with Sevatar. When was he last? When was the last we saw him? So he does. Is he? I think he's in Conrad Kurz's novel. What would have been the last book with Sevatar? Last book with Sevatar. Of course, he's referenced in the Night Lords trilogy, but yeah, the whole thing is they don't know where he is. The Long Night, an audio drama, is apparently the last we hear of him. There you go. Yeah. I guess they're just kind of waiting for it. I don't know if I've listened to the audio drama. The Long Night. I recognize the art. Yeah, I remember. Yeah, that's a shame last time we see him. But yeah, I don't know when we'll see him in the future. I guess it's kind of, you know, it's a shame because the Night Lords have had, of course, really great characters introduced. We've had Talos, the Death of Saints from Morven Val's novel. These were really kind of great Night Lords characters to be introduced that could had the potential to become like big leaders. And of course, you're like Sahal, but then now nothing really happened with them because they die. So it just, well, and Sahal's not, but yeah, the two are, and it's kind of a shame because on the one, obviously Sevatar is the likely leader for the Night Lords going forward, but it would be kind of nice to have some diversity in not having everyone be a legend from the Heresy. Maybe one of the Legion kind of leaders should be kind of a newer Chaos Space Marine, and that would be pretty cool. I think I'd like that more. But hey, Salmon, I'm in Canterbury. I am drunk on Amasec. I moved to the mountains of Taptree. Give me your fastest hot take on Peter Turbo. Hot take on Peter Turbo. So I think Purty is going to forge himself into some sort of like crazy weapon. So I don't think Perturabo is going to be a traditional demon prince. I think he might be like technically a demon prince, but I think realistically he's going to have some sort of unique ability that will win them the Iron Cage and ultimately turn them into a demon prince. I think they're going to completely redo the Iron Cage because it's last written about properly in 5th edition. The numbers are way too small. Saw an interview with Dan Abnett about 4 to 5 years ago. He said he has extensively discussed with multiple 40k authors on what exactly happens when the Golden Throne fails. The Star Child is definitely coming. I mean, it's interesting. I think Dan Abnett has his beliefs that are, I think, what pretty much have become people would treat as canon. And I think what Dan Abnett believes is what most people believe. But to be fair, like when I did an interview with Mike Brooks, and he did impress upon me. He was like, when I was asking about the Lion, of course, and I was asking about the Alpha Legion, and he's like, the things I don't own these characters, so I can't tell you. But Dan Abnett is kind of like I think the impression that I get. I had a conversation with another author as well, and the impression that I got from him was that like they're all like in a tongue-in-cheek way quite jealous of Dan Abnett because Dan Abnett basically gets to do what he wants, and the rest of them need it to be approved by 7 people to make any change to a major character. But yeah, presumably Dan Abnett is able to just kind of do whatever. Do you think Jagatai will be up and running in the new Siege book? Oh, good question. I really want to see him talking to his brothers. I hope he's up and running, but I also hope in the long run, I really hope we see his, death, as it were, have a huge impact on him as a character. Because, there's got to be something in him having seen the other side. One of the things that Sanguinius has in the end of Death Volume 2 is this kind of bit where he sees the soul of Ferrus Manus, but around them are also these kind of like remnants of souls of the demon Primarchs, the loyalist parts of them, basically. And I love the idea of maybe Jagatai Khan, getting to know those parts of the soul or something kind of crazy like that. I'm just thinking out loud, maybe have something maybe have Jagatai Khan do something with the Grey Knights, because of course he does historically he liked Magnus very much and they were very close. So maybe he'll kind of get along with the Grey Knights. Maybe they're hanging out in 40k. I don't know. We'll see. Has there been any more stories about Decimus becoming leader of the Night Lords, or was the end of the trilogy the last of it? Sorry to spam you, but I never see these live. So there might be a short story set after, but I'd have to double check. But yeah, I think it's pretty much done. Sorry. But yeah, I think Decimus would also be a great shout. Dude, the first 4 books made me so emotional towards the loyalist Emperor's children. Dude that commands the little resistance in Istvan. I guess you mean Sultavitz? But yes, Sultavitz, great character. Very good character. Very beloved. Very beloved by all. It's kind of funny, like characters like Sultavitz, you know, they have models and they're incredibly popular, but they're only in, as you say, like, you know, 3 or 4 books. I think we're getting Valdor back soon. I don't know if we're getting him back as a model, but I think we'll get him back in a story. I think, you know, the most likely answer is Beckwin 3. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see. When Jagatai comes back, Mortarion will have to run out to face with him, a rematch or something. Yeah, I don't know if they will. I mean, I think Jagatai versus Fulgrim would be what I'd really like to see. Of course, they don't get along in they don't get along in the Great Crusade. They famously are, yeah. The Horus even, you know, knows he can kind of use Fulgrim to kind of rile up Jagatai Khan quite easily. But well, actually, no, I think it was the other way. I think Horus believes that he can get Fulgrim to come out of Slaanesh's palace just to face Jagatai because they hate each other. But their story goes a lot deeper than that because Magnus the Red implies that they are opposites. They're opposite Primarchs, and it was supposed to be Jagatai Khan landing on Chemos, and Fulgrim was supposed to land on Chigorus, but then something switched their places, or, you know, which might have been Zeech or something. So yeah, they're kind of opposite Primarchs, and of course they're both swordsmen. So yeah, that would be. I'd love to see the new Fulgrim versus Jagatai. That would be epic. And you know, I mean, I'm you know, probably wishful thinking, but the 10th edition box being White Scars versus Emperor's Children, or White Scars versus Orcs, and then have like an Emperor's Children White Scars battle as well. I don't know. Jaggy is the boss. This is true. Remember, sir. I don't think Perturabo should descend to demonhood and fully commit to chaos like the other traitor Primarchs, but there are some demon Perty models out there that look badass. Yes, wasn't there like a converted one for Golden Demon that did really well. That looked really good. But yeah, in the Half-Breed story, we get like a very brief description of him. The bit I can remember is like they talk about his like centerpiece. It's like a coffin, which is, I guess, is why the general idea of him being like a demon prince dreadnought comes from. I'm gonna guess, but yeah. I mean, the end of the death just talks about him wanting to become a weapon. I mean, it's said that he believes he can turn himself into a weapon that's so strong he could defeat Horus, and no one can defeat Horus. So exactly what he's going to become, I'm interested to see. You know, it can't just be a demon prince, right? He's going to want to make himself into something really badass. Remembrancer. From one Lawmaster to another. If Jagatai is back, I figure he'll go off and do what he likes without changing the setting much, reinvigorate the Eldar tabletop line, and give us a new White Scars lineup. Yeah, sorry if I didn't say. Do check out Remembrancer's channel if you haven't. It's very, very good. Covers all of the characters. Yeah, I think that. Because obviously because Jagatai Khan disappeared into the webway, the likelihood of him doing something with the Eldari is quite high, and I was half hoping when we in Araman, the newest Araman book, he sees inside of the Black Library for like the first time, which was crazy, and I was half hoping we'd see like a Jagatai Khan reference in there, but yeah, still the idea of him working with the Harlequins would be pretty cool. I think that would work well. I'd love to see that. Also, would be a quite nice lead-in to have him face down Magnus, because of course, yeah, I mean Jagatai actually, you know, Morty, Magnus, and Fulgrim are all three pretty big. Those three have a lot of history there, so it'd be kind of cool. Yeah, there's definitely stuff you can do with all of them. What if the rumor engine of a Primaris engine is Jagatai on a bike? Yeah, I think that's probably pretty likely at some point. Or just him on a rhino would be fantastic. But yeah, him on a bike would be really cool. Just yeah, I mean, it would be. It would. I mean, you'd be tempted by that. But they know how much money their Primarchs make, so as many Primarch models as they can churn out, it's just free cash. I see 40k Purty looking more like an Obliterator. Maybe. But the Obliterators have like a specific origin story. So yeah, I mean the vibe will be similar, but I kind of like them being their own thing. What if Omegon came back as a successor chapter and tries to help the Lion again, like just Alfarius did with the Ghost Legion? Yes. Would Omegon come back and lead a chapter? I don't know. I mean, I don't think so. I mean, getting more information on Omegon will be really interesting. And certainly Omegon is more interesting than Alfarius. I think that the story Serpent's something, whatever it's called, Serpent's Head? I don't think it's that. The short story where Omegon kind of betrays Alfarius is really interesting, and they never really expand upon it. But it's, yeah, the concept of them not being aligned is very much in the canon now, and so potentially him being loyal might come up more in the Heresy. And certainly you have those kind of, you know, Alpha Legionnaires on Terra, and you know, it looked like, I can't remember the correct keyword, but it looked like the loyalist keyword was the one that they wanted to be used. So it looked like the senior Alpha Legion, at least, had committed themselves to the Emperor by the end of the Heresy, which is quite interesting. Can Purty ascend to Demon Prince status? Didn't GW pull back on Chaos Undivided as an aspect of them? No, they never did. I think what happened was, of course, in the Heresy, Perturabo is very much kind of like aligned with Abaddon to the degree they kind of, you know, they kind of chat shit about Horus in the Siege of Terra, and Perturabo's hatred of chaos seems quite evident. So a lot of people kind of came to a similar conclusion as yourself and went, oh, does this mean that Perturabo is never going to ascend to chaos, to become a demon prince, because he seems to hate chaos, so that doesn't really match his character? But they explain in the End of Death Volume 3 why he becomes a demon prince. So it's, yeah, it kind of works now. Do you think 11th edition will touch on the Subject 11 incident? I mean, that's the kind of law that's like a paragraph, you know, a small paragraph in a Custodes Codex. It's all you've really got. So it's always possible. It's always possible. Like, you know, the Terminus Decree was once that. So it's, yeah, there's always a possibility that will happen. But yeah, I mean, yeah, there's no sign of it. I don't think so. I don't think you'd get that kind of evolution. Yeah, I mean, it would depend on a writer wanting to pick it up, and everything has a chance. I can never say no. I mean, that's the wonderful thing about 40k nowadays. Is all these things are on the cards, you know. But I'm not confident in that idea. If the returning Primarchs have special powers, what would be Jagatai's special power? Good question. I mean, I would, quite frankly, just more of the Primarchs understanding more of their Psyker side of things would be interesting. Maybe something around speed. The Alec Guess power that he uses in his Primarch novel was always like really cool. And you know, in terms of who's the strongest Primarch, you know, there's always going to be an argument for Jagatai Khan. The argument being that if Jagatai Khan gets a big enough run up, then I don't know many Primarchs that can really stand against him. But yeah, something else. I mean, you know what? When we were talking about like who gets what from the Emperor's armory, one of the suggestions that I really liked was like the Emperor's eagle that like is on his armor. That becomes like an actual eagle or a bird that Jagatai Khan can use, like something like that. So, I don't know. There's something kind of cool like that. But yes, of course, Corvus Corax has kind of unlocked this kind of warp side of himself a lot more. But I think Leman Russ and Jagatai Khan will probably have relatively decent psychic powers when we see them again, because we can't just have everyone being a heavy hitter. So yes, we want to see some psychers. Have you read the Endless War anthology? If so, what? To be honest, mate, all the anthologies blur together. Endless War. An audio drama. So, yes. So, Lightning Tower and the Dark King. Those are very big ones. You have to. I would say everybody should listen to those two, at the very least, or read them. They're also. I think those were also released in novella versions. So that was how I read them. I think. So I think everyone has to read them. Herald of Sanguinius is very short, but if you're a Blood Angels fan or have any interest in the Blood Angels, you have to read that story. It's fun. Yeah, it covers. It's, weirdly, you get these like massive moments that are covered in these kind of really short stories, and so yeah, you have to read that one. And then, yeah, probably Sigilite really is the last one. But yeah, the rest of them, yeah, it really depends on how much you like the factions that they cover. Obviously, if you know, yeah, if you're an Emperor's Children fan, there's a Lucius story in there. There's a couple of Space Wolf stories in there. But yeah, Lightning Tower, Dark King, Herald of Sanguinius, and Sigilite are the main ones I would say you have to read. Snowfox, thank you for joining the channel, man. Yeah, check out extra content and members Discord as well. On the topic of short stories, have you read War in the Museum? I have, yeah. I think I read that before Infinite Divine even. So yeah, pretty cool. Kind of like the original. I think it is before Infinite Divine, isn't it? So it's but like yeah, what would happen if you unleashed Tyranids inside of Solomon's? Basically, the answer is things go very badly. At some point, I have to do something on the Infinite Divine because it's such a popular story, but the actual plot line is kind of a dud in it. Not in like a bad way. If you read the book, you know what I mean. But like, yeah, so I don't know exactly what I would cover for it. I would definitely do something on Twice Dead King. Because that's if you want just kind of like pure Necron lore, like the Infinite Divine is such a good book, but the Twice Dead King has real expansion on Necron lore. Like I was very surprised, like how much more Necron lore we got in that. Things like the War in Heaven, you just get so much more than I'd ever seen. I'd be curious to see more stories from the middle 32nd, 38th millenniums. Because there are quite a lot. You know, there are quite a lot of... That was what 40k was for a long time, was they had this kind of end point, which was the 13th Black Crusade, and they just wrote stories in the middle. So there's actually probably a fair few. Twice Dead King series are very good. Yeah, there's only 2 books, but yeah, I would definitely recommend those, especially if you like Infinite Divine, which I think everybody does. Then yeah, do check out Fall of Cadia, which is of course Robert Rath's other novel for 40k. And then, yeah, in Twice Dead King, which is not by Robert Rath, but it's who's the author of that again? I think it's someone I'm random, but yeah, it's very good, very very good story, and yeah, I'll have to do a video on that one day because it was excellent. Am I crazy? But does anyone else get super sad now when they open a new 40k, 30k novel and there isn't a dramatis personae? I can't be alone in this. Books with them are instantly better, right? I know what you mean. Like, especially for series, right? So with the Dawn of Fire series, I would have been screwed without the dramatis personae because I was like, who is that again? You expect me to remember random ultramarines, a bunch of inquisitors and all this kind of thing, and I'm like, who are these people? And yes, so having them all kind of listed out was very good, very very useful. So yeah, I know what you mean. And also it's a nice kind of day, do you know what I mean, when you get like the leak on Reddit or whatever, which is like, dramatis personae for this book coming out. That's always a really cool thing, because of course for the Siege of Terra, we knew not every character's in every book, so you're like, who's going to be covered? Are the Imperial Fists going to be in this one? Are the Blood Angels or the Dark Angels? Who's going to be in this one? So I do, yeah, it's kind of, I like that they do that. Um, Infinite Divine had amazing voice acting as well on Audible. I haven't checked out the Audible, but I think I've heard that before actually. So yeah. But I haven't listened to that one myself. Any books narrated by Jonathan Keeble are so good. Does he do like a kind of a robot-y voice? How does that work? Or does he just... Yeah, how does that work? As far as I know, the canon voice of the Emperor is Jonathan Keeble. Who's the voice of the Emperor in Space Marine 2? The bit when Titus rises. Does anyone know who that is? Is it Jonathan Keeble? That would be interesting. It would be cool to have like a canon voice of the Emperor who does all of it. That would be great. I just dropped into the chat. There are more Horus Heresy books. Yes, sorry, that's what we're talking about today. So the wonderful Chapter Master Valrak. Yes, he did a video on this a few weeks ago now, and actually probably longer than that. Actually, maybe like a month or two. But yeah, there's been no move on it yet, and I hesitated to making a video on it because I don't usually talk about leaks, but to my limited and small brain, these leaks look pretty good. So there's a bunch of pictures on Reddit which you can check out, and at the very least, someone has made a leather-bound limited edition book, and it looks like it matches that pretty well. And the title names again work pretty well. At the very least, you know, it got me thinking about what I'd like to see so in the final books. So we were talking about this earlier. So what I think is, I think John French, I think Ex Libris is most likely on Ahriman, because Ahriman is in the Hall of Leng. So I think we'll probably see something on Ahriman kind of discovering a piece of knowledge or taking a book from the library that the Emperor wrote or had recovered. And then Angels of Another Age, I think is most likely going to be on Cypher, because Cypher has died and we need him to be not dead by the Siege of Caliban. Fulbright, I think Fulbright is going to be Barthusa Nandrek finding another, because obviously the other one is gone. So finding another Fulbright spear. And it could be, I think he might even find it in like 40k or something nuts, because I think that you see the Emperor and Horus fight across time and space. And so I think, you know, someone walking along is, you know, a plane of Istvan 5 will just find this Fulbright dagger, Fulbright spear, something really weird like that. System Purge, most likely, of course, going to be the Ultramarines. We don't get a lot on the Ultramarines cleaning up the system afterwards, so just more details on that would be great. Fragments is the most toughest one to guess. I think, yeah, I mean, Valdor, Leetu, Dawn, all of them great options. I'm going to go Leetu because you know I love him. And I would like to see a story on him like burying his mother or something like that. And then, like, you know, there's a thing in the books about her having all these kind of statues of old gods. So maybe something, that's where the term fragments comes from. But yeah, it could also be like, you know, fragments of Sanguinius' soul, something kind of crazy like that. Yeah. After the Dawn of Darkness and Homebound. Homebound, I think, will be the White Scars, kind of, you know, the recovery of Jagatai Khan and him heading back to Chigoris. The Scouring, perhaps. Yeah, sorry. So all of these will be set in the Scouring, pretty much. Maybe one of them will be set beforehand, but yeah, I think pretty much all of them will be set in the Scouring. And then after the Dawn, the Darkness by Guy Haley, this is my more random guess, but I think Arik Tyrannus. I think it's got to be Arik Tyrannus. He's got to appear at some point, and we all want to see it. The Carrion Lord of the Imperium by Aaron Dembski-Bowden. You know, he did write Master of Mankind, so I think they'll probably give him the big story. So what does the Emperor do when he's put onto the Golden Throne? Maybe some final messages from the Emperor being sent out to Dawn or to maybe the Chosen of Malkador, or yeah, one of the other Primarchs. Yeah, or maybe something kind of like crazy, like you could have like a final conversation between the Emperor and Malkador, like as the Malkador's kind of soul is being destroyed. Yeah, so maybe something kind of crazy like that, like a nice story to kind of, I say nice, a nice grimdark, horrific story to end the series, which would be badass. I'd like that. Yeah, so all of these will be big, pretty much. I don't think any of these will be small. I think they'll all be massive books. Yeah. Obviously, I don't think Araman's character will particularly change, but finding out the state of Cypher and Corswain, the Fulbright and Buthus and Andrek, the Souls lead to all of these plotlines are huge for me personally. I can't wait for them. You think Lehman Russ will ever return? I hope not. No, I'm joking. I do think he will return. I think that, yeah, I mean, the real answer is that he's the most likely Primarch to return next from a financial point of view, because he's worth so much money to Games Workshop, right? Because of course the Space Wolf range is a massive range for Games Workshop, and so it's quite likely. But the truth is, Ferris, I would say Rogel Dawn is the only Primarch who they kind of go the extra mile to explain why he won't be coming back anytime soon. And so I think lore-wise there's no evidence for it, but logically, of course, I can't argue with you if you're like, well, I think he'll come back because he'll make Games Workshop a bunch of money. That's a very solid argument, and I will not fight you on it. But yes, he will absolutely return at some point. I think the reason they aged the Lion was to match the Lehman Russ, because Lehman Russ is aged by the end of his Primarch novel. They talk about him having like grey hair, etc. And he's obviously gone through this kind of transition. And realistically, you know, we all want to see that Russ Lehman team up. You know, that will be even more popular than the Lions book. It will be so big. Like, can you imagine? It's like, to me, that's like if you got 40k and distilled it into a pure form. I would drink it, inject it into my veins. God, that'd be good. I enjoy your live stream talks. Thanks, man. I enjoy doing them. Yeah, I will. I'm visiting family tomorrow, so I won't be streaming tomorrow, but I'll be back on Sunday. I'm trying to do Lawmas. I'm trying to stream as much as possible, as many days as possible, up until Christmas, which will be fun. And it's a real big experiment for me, because I've not been that consistent. I've not made that much content this year, to be honest. But yeah, I've had kind of personal stuff, and I was like, well, maybe this is a good way to kind of test the live stream, because live stream is kind of weird in that, like, it's kind of like bad for YouTube growth. And yeah, of course, you know, like a live stream on the Lion won't do anywhere near as well as a video on the Lion, because a video on the Lion will be far more polished and it will be far more interesting, and, you know, people more like to stay on the video and that kind of thing. But at the same time, I feel like I connect much more with you guys doing this, and that's pretty fun and it's quite interesting. And in a way, a lot of the time that's more important, you know, having a more like a community kind of thing. And I feel like I've been speaking to so many more people off the back of these live streams than like even my biggest videos do. Do you know what I mean? So in a way, I've been really enjoying these, and that's been quite cool for me. But yeah, I guess we'll see. It's kind of interesting. I guess at the end of the month, I'll be honest with you, I'll be looking back on the old stats, and yeah, I guess I'll take a look and I'll see. But yeah, I think that I might look into hiring like an editor or something, which is something that like people have messaged me about from time to time, and I think that would help me get content out more regularly. But yeah, I think I'd like to get to the stage where I'm doing like a members live stream, a normal live stream, then like probably like one short and then one video a week. That's what I like to get to, but I don't think I can do that on my own. I think I'd probably need some sort of editor for that, because yeah, I think I just burn myself out. But yeah, it's interesting. Thanks, Remembrance. Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, it'll be interesting. And it's one of those things where Remembrance obviously has his own very successful channel, and you know, different channels all do kind of different things in a weird way. So like, obviously, not many people do the live streaming thing, and that's kind of been like a unique thing I've had. But at the same time, I haven't done a lot of podcasting, or I haven't done a lot of like just standard videos like Remembrance does. I actually have probably like 20 normal videos on this channel, something like that. Well, maybe not, but like, yeah, it's not a lot. Barilla, thank you so much for the super chat, mate. Thank you. Yeah, thanks for the support. I can't stress that enough. Alejandro, thank you for joining the channel, and I hope I pronounced Alejandro correctly. That's my British pronunciation. Alex in the chat. Hello, mate. Good to see you. Yes, I need to bully Alex to live stream more with me. Definitely. And we have a friend of ours who's a very big Alpha Legion fan, who I also will be bullying on to talk Alpha Legion at some point in the future, because yeah, he's very good and he paints phenomenally well. It's very upsetting to me, as does Alex's painting, to be fair. If you've never checked out Alex's Instagram, Quipster Nerd, sorry, on Instagram, do check it out. He's like ridiculously good. It's it's very depressing, really. I mean, yeah, terrible bastard. We got our niches. Yes, that's true. It's true. Everyone does kind of have their niches, and that's the weird thing about YouTube is that like you're supposed to stay in your niche. This is what people say, but then like you see someone do something else, and you're like, oh, that looks fun. I'll give that a go. But it's a weird world. Yeah. I just know, like, what last we know, he went into the Great Rift and gives his legions visions of things they need to do. Oh, sorry, I thought that's a comment following on from something. Oh, sorry, I really just watch videos on Primarchs, and Leman Russ seems like a badass. All of the Primarchs mostly are that. He is. I mean, so the really interesting thing about Leman Russ, of course, is that we see his last conversation where he says, I will return in the Wolf Time. We see that happen in what's it called? The Leman Russ's Primarch novel. I'm just going to call it Leman Russ's Primarch novel by Chris Ray. It's very good, and the rumor was always that he went into the warp, and the Eye of Terror, searching for something called the Tree of Life, and the Tree of Life is kind of like is a thing in 40k, is in like it has a tarot card. It is a thing that is referred to, but we don't know if it's like a physical thing. But it was rumored he had gone searching for that with Constantine Valdor. And Constantine Valdor and Leman Russ are connected. So there's a short story called Two Metaphysical Blades that covers this mostly. And they also kind of talk about killing Horus and the Heresy, which doesn't go very well. And in Two Metaphysical Blades, the Emperor says that Leman Russ and Constantine Valdor are opposites. And that's why he gives them these two opposite spears. So it was always kind of implied they would go together. But then one day Dan Abnett went, okay guys, I got this fucking crazy idea. And the CEO of GW approved it. And so now we have this massive storyline with Constantine Valdor, and we don't know what's happened to Leman Russ. Presumably he's not connected to it. And there is a story, the person who wanted a story taking place in the 32nd millennium, you should read the Battle of the Fang story. And in that, there's 1,000 Sun, there's these 2,000 Suns talking. And one of them says to the other, they're planning to attack Fenris. And he says, oh, well, obviously Leman Russ isn't going to help them because we know what's happened to him. So the 1,000 Suns kind of imply that they might have Leman Russ somewhere, or they know that he's lost somewhere. So that's why Leman Russ is kind of like less likely to return in that respect. I would love to see my hope, this is my dream on a Sunday evening. This is what I'm thinking about. I would love to see the Lion's reunion with Rabute Gilliman to be a mirror of what happens in Unremembered Empire. If you've not read Unremembered Empire, definitely check out that book, especially given the Lion and Gilliman's return. And you'll see that they have a very kind of tense meeting, somewhat worsened by the presence of Conrad Curzon, the Invincible Reason. But the Lion is like incredibly pompous, and he's perfect at his arrival. And even Gilliman's like, this guy's showing off, but I'd show off. And you get this real sense of how much Gilliman kind of admires the Lion, but also kind of hates the Lion. Fascinating relationship. Anyway, I would like to see a reverse of that in 40k, where you have the Dark Angels kind of show up and be perfect again and again. But they break into a hug. The Lion has gone through so much. We see at the end of the Lion, Son of the Forest, that he's clearly very happy to have a brother. And so, yeah, I would love to see that. Anyway, in Unremembered Empire, there are some Space Wolves there. The Space Wolves have been sent out across a bunch of Space Wolves have been sent out across the galaxy to basically kill the loyalist Primarchs kill Primarchs if they think they've turned traitor. And this is an ambitious plan, but it's a plan they have nonetheless. And Gilliman's relationship with these Space Wolves is fantastic. In fact, I think Remembrance did a video on them, which is, yeah, very good. So, yes, there's really good. Anyway, so I like the idea that the same thing happens, where Gilliman meets the lion. They have the conversation, and Gilliman says, sorry, I have some bad news, however. The wolves are here. And at that point, camera pans right, and the lion is staring down this massive, the Space Wolf chapter is bigger than ever now. So this big Space Wolf chapter. And at that point, the lion's going to have to do an honor duel, just as he did in Unroman Empire. But I want to see the lion have an honor duel against, like, Bjorn the Fell-Handed, or something, just see a Primarch fighting a Dreadnought, something just absolutely nuts. And that story ends with the lion and the Space Wolves, the Dark Angels and the Space Wolves, teaming up to go and find Leman Russ. Because the story, the lion's kind of message from the Emperor kind of hints that he needs to maybe find Leman Russ, or something connected to at least his spear. So yeah, that's kind of my hope. But yeah, that's let me know what you think. All the Primarchs are badass except for one. Ushatan is the best Primarch. Am I right? I hope we get more on Ushatan. I'd imagine Arik Tyrannis is a Primarch. It doesn't say he's a Primarch in Outcast Dead. I can't remember the words, but there is, like, the way Ushatan talks, the way Tyrannis talks to. Is it Gota? Gota, I think it is, isn't it? Long time since I read that book. The way he talks to Gota, they use, like, titles for each other that are, like, I don't know what those words mean. They're just, like, I can't remember what the titles are, but they have these, like, specific titles referring to one another. And Gota is, like, so subservient to Arik Tyrannis, to the degree, like, when he fails to kill these Space Marines, he goes back to Arik Tyrannis and is like, he offers his head. He's like, you can kill me now because I failed you. So it's kind of like, there's definitely a Primarch vibe there. But yeah, just a book on all of the, just like some, like, paragraphs or little bits on all of the Thunder Warriors lore. Just those kind of little tidbits are what really make 40k kind of shine, I think. So I'd love to see that. Blood Brother, yes, that's the Space Wolf who leads the Space Wolves who are there to potentially kill Gilliman. Very funny scenes. I want Quipster back. Yours kind of podcast together where you chat about the lore are my favourite videos of yours. Oh, thank you very much. I mean, it's funny. Like, I was talking to Quipster about it the other day. We did the video on the Emperor Awakening storyline from Dawn of Fire series, and we kind of just threw that together one evening, and that's become, like, it's a live stream. It's one of my most popular videos because, I guess, in hindsight, it seems obvious. But at the time, we were just like, oh, we need something to talk about. Oh, yeah, all this wording around the Emperor Awakening, that's kind of crazy. Let's talk about that. And we just jumped on a live stream and had that conversation. And then, yeah, it was big all of a sudden, which is kind of cool. Where was I? Do you think the Lion will speak with the Emperor and have a similar experience? I don't, to be honest. Because he kind of does have a conversation with the Emperor in his novel. At least he gets information from the Emperor, which is kind of like the main purpose. What Gilliman gets from his conversation with the Emperor is, well, amnesia, but also he gets kind of like the understanding of what he's supposed to do. And the thing that I always liked is this idea that the Emperor was especially harsh with Gilliman because A, he's lost all his niceness, he cut off those parts of himself, but B, he's being harsh to Gilliman because he needs Gilliman to step up and be the leader of the Imperium, and because, like, what's crazy is that the Emperor kind of tells Gilliman, I can't help you, you need to run this shit now. But then in the Indomitus Crusade, the Emperor is clearly watching Gilliman very closely, and he keeps intervening. And the books talk about how uncomfortable Gilliman gets because the Emperor keeps doing stuff. So, for example, Gilliman will, like, rock up to a warp storm, and then the warp storm calms. And then Gilliman's like, okay, thanks, Dad, and then just drives through. And of course, the Legion of the Damned, although we don't really see them in the books, in the background it said that they are appearing more than ever, and we have so many more saints now than ever before. Of course, Gilliman in Plague Wars kind of meets this child that is kind of like a saint, or has got, like, the power of the Emperor in her. And Gilliman can definitely kind of sense his father's power within that child. So it's, yeah, the whole thing's nuts. What kind of power do you think Titus uses to oppose chaos and corruption? I mean, yeah, I'm going to talk about this probably on Sunday. I think I'm going to do something on Titus on Sunday. And it's kind of weird because on the one hand, like I did like Marnius Calgar's line about how, the Inquisition could just never understand. Like a son of Guilliman could never be corrupted in this way. That was kind of cool. But at the same time, the end of Space Marine 1 has this moment that I loved from Titus where he's like, I do not understand where my resistance comes from, but I promise you I will find the answer. And he like kind of threatens Thrax with this line. And I thought that was a really great line. So then to have that end with this idea of like, oh no, he's just kind of built different. It was a bit disappointing. But yeah, I mean, that was such a twist. I kind of, of course, Space Marine 1, if you're not familiar, it ends with this kind of bit about, Titus says to Leandros, like, you have failed in how you have applied the Codex. But then in reality, in Space Marine 2, he's like, yeah, I'm sorry about that. I've got a lot of learning to do. I'll do better next time. And Leandros is still a dick. But yeah, it's a shame. I'd like to see the Lion and the Guilliman meet on Terra after the siege. That would be cool. Presumably that does happen. I don't know if they will do purely because the Lion and Guilliman's relationship, in hindsight, everything makes sense now. Dan Abnett must have known when they were returning. The Guilliman and the Lion's relationship is never really resolved, I think, by the end of Ruinstorm. I think that it is, obviously better, and they're happy to work together, and of course they are both devoted to Sanguinius. But it's never really resolved. Do you know what I mean? I don't know if that makes sense. Like they never really kind of, Guilliman never really apologizes. Sorry, the Lion never really apologizes, and yeah, it's just kind of whatever. They just kind of move forward because it's the best thing. But yeah. Anyway, so I quite like that they left it. We won't find out what they think of each other until they see each other. Additionally, I will say, because we have the story of the Lion meeting Russ on Terra, and that is so good. Part of me doesn't want to touch that storyline. Like, I loved that moment. It's one of my favorite Primarch moments. It's so human. It's just so, yeah, like, sometimes they use this wording around like, oh, the Primarchs are superhuman, but what that really means is like they're more human in a lot of ways. And I loved that scene because they're just so, yeah, it's so kind of like weirdly relatable in the strangest way possible. I have to explain that more at some point. Your streams have won me over to Valdor appreciation. Long live the moody golden mohawk. Yeah, I mean, I went through a thing. I was like, I need to stop talking about Valdor in every single stream, but he's just so interesting as a character. And every theory we all have, it's like, I mean, Valdor could be involved, and this is the thing. Valdor is supposedly so powerful. He's supposedly more powerful than the High Lords of Terra, the most powerful army potentially in the setting. Like, there's just, yeah, he's just so bonkers powerful now that we don't, he could be behind everything. And I guess the whole thing of his character is he is behind so much stuff. I have no doubt they'll probably retcon a bunch of stories and say Valdor was actually behind this. Valdor was actually directing these guys. Yeah, nuts. Love it. Love it. Watch party for secret level. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, that would be great. I don't know what the rules are though. I don't want to get in trouble. So that's the thing. I know a lot of people do. Like I can't remember the name of the channel. There's a channel, for example, that I think it's fine. Like, I think I don't think it gets in trouble. But like, there's a channel that like will watch all the Warhammer Plus stuff, but he just breaks it up. So he'll watch half the episode and then do a review of that, and then he'll watch the other half of the episode. Now, I don't know if that's technically okay, but Games Workshop seems to be fine with it and allowing it. However, I don't know what Amazon are like. Presumably, this doesn't work for an Amazon TV show. Remember that. Yo, Ed, should the next Space Marine video be about a different chapter? I like Titus, but I'd love the focus on a new chapter of Space Marine 3. Oh, that's a good idea. Good question. Yeah, it would be interesting. I'm trying to think who it would be. I mean, the Blood Ravens would be a pretty obvious answer, I guess, because it's a video game. But yeah, it's a really good question. I don't know. I mean, so my thing is, and this is probably what I'm talking about mostly on Sunday, although they mention, the Primarch and, for the Primarch throughout the book, I thought it was kind of shocking to not hear more about Guilliman in Space Marine 2. You don't really hear a lot about him. And part of me is like, is that because they're holding that stuff back? Because here's my thing. This is like the bulk of my thinking is that Titus was captain of the second company, which means for those, I think it's 10 years now because they updated as well, didn't they? For those 10 years that he was captain, his principal duty was to guard the body of Rabute Guilliman. But then when Guilliman was truly in danger, he wasn't there because of Leandros. And we know Guilliman has this, you see that with the Destroyer squads and Heresy, with Sicarius, of course, Theonid, Theonid. Am I saying that right? I've never said that name out before. Like he kind of likes these kind of like off-brand Space Marines that kind of do their own thing. And so I feel like he'd like Titus, but hey ho. But yes, a different chapter would be cool. I mean, it was interesting to see that the Cursed Founding chapters feature so heavily in kind of like the, well, not heavily, but they feature in the kind of base game. And I was like, oh, I'd love to see like Carcharodon's story, Lamentis. Oh, Lamentis would be great. Can you imagine? That'd be so good. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's a really good question. But I do like the Titus storyline. I also thought that, is it Chiron? Yeah, Chiron with the Kauth. I would like more like exploration of him on Kauth. Maybe them fighting against Wordbearers would be just epic. That was a cool scene. Do you think Erebus will win the game of Warhammers and sit on the Golden Throne? Oh, probably. He might do. I don't know. Chaos doesn't want to corrupt Titus because the gods are afraid of Malum Kado. Maybe. Kado going into Space Marine 2 would be cool. Hey, Sandman of Terra. Opinions of the best Void Combat novel, aside from Solar War, No Fear, and Impossible to Get Out of Print War Gothics, aside from those four. I don't know if they still print the old ones, but actually they're Carcharodons. So, Tybros the Red Wake, of course, is very famous for being very, very big. But the thing in the books that makes him really interesting is he's a Void Master. And he is really good at Void Combat. And so it makes the Carcharodons particularly adept at Void Combat. Lionel Johnson, Son of the Forest, is also a really cool scene there. Because you have this scene where like he's massively outnumbered, then his mind kind of turns the tide, which is quite interesting. Yeah. Keeler is the last one. Carry Lord of the okay. I could see it being on Keeler. What would it be about her though? Her story had like I didn't finish her story wanting more. Like the idea of her kind of finishing up, spreading word of the Emperor, and of course spreading the story of Elanius the Pious, as he'll become known. I thought that worked well. So I don't know if I was left wanting more. But yeah, I'm curious what you think. Yeah. Space Marine 3 with the Dark Angels. I mean, it's most likely going to be Dark Angels, Blood Angels, Space Wolves. Yeah, I'll be honest with you. That's kind of a sad thing to say, but it is true. I mean, as a Dark Angels fan, I'm very happy, but realistically, they get more attention. Titus' story isn't over yet. Leandros wants him to suffer again, even after he has been chosen by the Emperor. Oh, I'll tell you what is true, though. Okay, so sorry, I've forgotten your name, but someone was messaging me about this the other day. In the Space Marine 2 story, there's a part in the story where you go to this funeral world, grave world, tomb world. No, it's not called tomb world. It's not called a tomb world, but it's also a tomb world. They go to this world, this graveyard world, and underneath the graveyards are this tomb worlds. And there's this part of the tomb complex where you see these scribblings on the wall of like Imperial ships. So it looks like there's some sort of time travel shenanigans going on with the Necrons. So yeah, potentially something with the Necrons would be cool. And it would be epic, right? Just, yeah, the Necrons would be a great addition because they'd be more obviously shooting kind of based as an enemy for the Space Marines. So I think that would work well. So yeah, I think that would work. Playable Asmodai. Yes, David, that would be excellent. Just like some sort of special ability, we can like grab Space Marines, whatever, and drag them away. That'd be superb. Minotaurs would be great, yeah. See you, remember, sir. Lamenters will need more time to get back to full strength to then go through whatever disaster GW has planned for them. Yes. Very true. Very true. Russia in Stalingrad had more numbers than Cadia. Yeah, there are. I can't remember what the numbers are for Cadia. I'll be honest with you, off the top of my head. But I assume it will be in the Gathering Storm series. So, but yeah, that doesn't surprise me. They do kind of go off, and it's one of those things you kind of do a double take because you read a book and you're like, oh yeah, 10 million men invaded this world, and you're like, whoa, 10 million men, and then you think for a second and you go, hang on, no wait, that's nothing. 10 million men is not. 10 million men is a tiny number. 10 million men is like, a bit of a country. And then you're going to take over a whole world? What if this world's bigger than the Earth? You're going to just... That makes no sense to me. Anyway. Yeah, so I think, yeah, you have to kind of always add a 0 or 2 when looking at these things. But yeah, I mean, the Legion numbers changed a lot. Like, a lot over the years. Of course, like, you had the 1,000 Suns. And they, originally, they were like, oh yeah, just 1,000 Marines. And then people went, hang on, that makes no sense. How can you have 1,000? Like, yeah, it just didn't work. But there we go. All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining me for this live stream. I hope this was fun. Thank you for sticking around with me. This was a lot of fun. I enjoyed this chat. I kind of enjoy these kind of casual chats as well. Thank you so much for the support. I'm visiting family tomorrow, so I won't be able to stream. But Sunday, Titus stream. I promise. So I'll see you then. But cheers, guys, and I'll see you next time. And that's a wrap for today's stream. If you enjoy these kinds of Warhammer 40k lore breakdowns and discussions, be sure to subscribe and hit that bell notification so you don't miss me going live. For those of you who want extra content and to support the channel, consider clicking the join button. Becoming a member will give you access to more videos and streams and our Discord community, where you can chat with other lore enthusiasts and myself. Thanks again for watching, look out for any Chaos or Genestealer cults in your area, and I'll see you next time.